Welcome to our Module 2 assignment. Our topic that we chose was sleep, and we decided that our target audience was going to be on college students. First, I'm going to start on what is sleep. So sleep can be broken down into two different categories, non-rapid eye movement and rapid eye movement. We're going to dive into the non-rapid first. And that's also going to be further divided into 4 different stages. And those last 2 stages have delta waves. And what's important about these delta waves is that they're good for restoring energy, helping the immune system, and also letting our body know when to release the growth hormones that we need. The other type of sleep is rapid eye movement sleep, or REM sleep. And it has beta waves, and it functions for memory and mostly the long-term memory, not so much the short-term memory, but it's also good for problem solving. And then you can look at the chart to see the difference between those two waves, the delta wave and the beta wave. A question you might have is how much sleep should you be getting? For college-age students, I would say that would be about young adult to adult on the chart on the right, and it seems that recommended is about 7 to 9 hours. But just making sure that these hours are also like high in quality, uninterrupted, you're not tossing and turning for those hours, it's continuous. And then some of the problems that people see if they don't get enough sleep or just not good sleep is sometimes they'll have symptoms like change in appetite or mood swings. I see this happening with college students whenever they're staying up pulling all-nighters, trying to cram for a test, or just making sure that those assignments that are due at midnight are in at midnight. And then sometimes we have to get up early for our class or work, and our sleep's not as great. So you do see things, the symptoms such as the change in appetite or the mood swings and irritability. So we need good sleep to have good health, but just breaking down health into further, it can be broken down into 3 different aspects. We have nutrition, exercise, and sleep. The thing about sleep is it can have an effect on nutrition or exercise, and the other two the same way for each other. So whenever we don't get enough sleep, we don't make as great decisions for our nutrition and our exercise. If I'm feeling drowsy, I might feel unmotivated to exercise, or maybe even unmotivated to eat what's right for me. And the example that we chose to highlight is that if you don't sleep well, you're maybe more likely to have cookies because you're craving the carbs, or maybe you just don't feel like going to the gym. You don't want to exercise when you're tired. Okay, so other benefits, we have those growth hormones being released. That goes back to that non-rapid eye movement sleep when we were talking about the delta waves in the 3rd and 4th stages. You have heart health maintenance, which is overall a good thing. And then weight management support. When you're getting enough sleep, you're more motivated to do a better diet, more motivated to work out more frequently. So that's good for your weight management. Immune support, we've already talked about, decreased risk of injury, and also just helping with memory, which goes back to that rapid eye movement sleep. Some of the health risk of not getting enough sleep says it's linked to 7 of the 15 leading causes of death, which is pretty much half of them. So some of the bigger ones is heart disease, cancer, brain disease, fatal accidents due to reduced memory, diabetes, sepsis, and hypertension. Also, this can be related to how when we're drowsy, we're not making the best decisions for ourselves. So that can cause some of these accidents or even just bad decisions for our diet or for our exercise patterns, for the kind of behaviors we get into day to day. A few more health risks that we wanted to mention was just not doing well in school, making poor decisions, that memory being affected from the rapid eye movement type of sleep, and just also it can affect somebody emotionally. On the chart, you'll see higher levels of anxiety, symptoms of depression, and we mentioned also anger and despair. And then also it can just kind of affect your relationships with other people, how you how you see yourself, how you're internally motivated. If you're not getting enough sleep, chances are you're not internally motivated to do well, and that can go towards any aspect of life, but focusing on school, if you're always tired in class, you may be not getting out as much during that lecture as you should, and that could be due to a lack of sleep. Alright, so let's talk about some of the factors that can interrupt that good quality sleep. For starters, they've noticed that women going through menopause can have different levels in their hormones, and that can cause different sleep disorders. But focusing on more of the college age, we can see some of these on the chart on the right have more of an impact. And just highlighting a few: stress. I mean, if you have an exam coming up, you maybe not prepared for, that can play an effect into it. Time management. Maybe you have a part-time job on the side, and that's cutting into some of your time, so you're worried about that. Maybe you just don't have a great environment to get good sleep, or if you're scrolling through TikTok at night, like I sometimes do, that's not really great either. Or just ultimately, if you see on the bottom, you see the social activities, it's saying sacrificing sleep and pulling all-nighters. We kind of wanted to focus on that one because so many students decide that they are going to pull an all-nighter. They have this test coming up that they're worried about, and they want to pull an all-nighter thinking, oh, I don't need sleep. I need to study as much as I can because I'm not prepared for this as I should be. And what ends up happening is they're messing up their circadian rhythm. So it is already known that their circadian rhythm is a little bit longer for adolescents and young adults, which many college students, especially those who do college straight after high school, are in that young adult category. So their circadian rhythms is still a little bit longer, and they're a little bit more awake in the evening. Sometimes that has difficulty falling asleep, or maybe just difficulty falling asleep at a good time. Maybe you can't fall asleep before 11, or maybe you're having a hard time falling asleep at all. Either way, that circadian rhythm's affected, and that's causing you to have not so great sleep. And it's also very hard to get that back to normal. Some other barriers before sleep, I've already kind of mentioned this: screen time before sleep. So scrolling on your phone in bed doesn't really do you many favors. And some examples that we provided was just the light from the phones or the tablets or any of your devices it causes the brain to have more activity and keeps you awake just a little longer than those who didn't have screen time before bed. And then another factor that can play into it is alcohol. So since alcohol promotes falling asleep a little bit faster, it can cause interrupted sleep, which we're going for getting to bed on time, but also going for uninterrupted quality sleep. And those who regularly consume alcohol might not be able to get the amount of sleep and the amount of uninterrupted sleep that they need. And they might require a sleep aid, and over time you get to develop dependence on the aids, and that's not doing many favors for your health. Alrighty, so we're continuing on with the barriers. Some different things that keep the brain moving and alert that can cause a hard time getting enough sleep, getting to sleep at all: caffeine, Adderall, nicotine, energy drinks, just to name a few. And when students use a combination of these or even one of these, it can still disrupt your circadian rhythm, and that will interrupt your sleep and you won't get as quality sleep. So it's best for your health to avoid using those few things and anything that increases alertness for the brain and keeps you up a little bit longer at the end of the night. So we talked about everything that can interrupt your sleep. So now we're going to talk about healthy sleep habits, things that you should be doing to get a better night's sleep. If you look on the chart on the right, you'll see that there's different tips. I'll name a few off of it. It says use your bed for sleeping only. This is pretty important because if you're in your bed for studying, in your bed for scrolling, in your bed for sleeping, sometimes your brain gets confused on which activity you're doing when you go to lay down, and it can cause you to have a harder time falling asleep and you be up a little bit longer. Steer clear of naps, especially in the afternoon. It's known that people that nap throughout the day have a harder time going to sleep because they napped earlier. And then it says to unwind and have a relaxing routine. This can help stimulate that inactivity to kind of get you ready to go to bed and get your mindset correct. And then some of the tips that we provided is saying avoiding late night snacking, especially sugar, alcohol, and caffeine. It's definitely important not to consume those too late in the day because it's known to affect how long it takes for you to fall asleep, and staying up all night's not ideal. No screen time 2 hours before bed. This goes back to that last slide. Whenever the screen time messes up your circadian rhythm, and also it causes your brain to be a little bit more alert, and it's harder to unwind. It's harder to go to sleep. Store all electronic devices in a separate area outside your bedroom. This is a good tip if you don't want to even be tempted or distracted by the screen and mess up that. It also helps you get up in the morning because you have to get up to turn the alarm off. Sleeping in a dark room also helps because that light stimulates brain activity. They even said to limit night lights or purchase blackout curtains. I think it's important that you're in a dark area because it's less distracting. If you have a light on, you can kind of do more than without it. So it just helps whenever you're ready to fall asleep to have a dark environment with no distractions and less activity for around you and going on in your brain. And then some more healthy tips to get that good night's sleep, saying to use an alarm clock instead of your smartphone. So the thing about the smartphone again goes back to the screen time, and if you use an alarm clock, then it's less of that light, and also it helps you get up in the morning a little bit more, I'd say at least. It says keep your bedroom temperature on the cooler side. So along with it being dark, you should want it to be a little bit cooler. Snuggle up with a blanket if you have to and drift off. It says ideally in the low to mid 60s. Oh, I'm speaking about Fahrenheit. And then again, the suggestion pops up to store the devices in a separate area outside your bedroom, which goes back to just avoiding the screens. And then lastly, and arguably the most important, is just to get into a consistent sleep routine every day that provokes a consistent circadian rhythm. It's sometimes hard to get into a good routine, but you'll eventually have to find a good time for you to go to bed and wake up and do it each day. It's also important to have the same schedule even on the weekends, because sometimes on the weekends, whenever you stay up a little bit later, you want to sleep in a little bit longer the next day. And while you can do that on a Friday, Saturday, maybe even Sunday, when it's Monday morning hits and you have the school mindset, it's not going to do many favors for you, and it's interrupting that circadian rhythm and interrupting that pattern, and you have to fix it each week. So it's very important to try to stay consistent even on the weekends. And then just having a better time management, better schedule, whether you're balancing school and work and whatever else is on your plate. And lastly, we're going to reiterate the point of avoiding all-nighters if you can. And this is just our reference page of different sources that we got our information from, with links to a few, and then also just using their textbook, for example, as well.